Precautionary principle says I have to assume they feel something and not torture them for no reason.
Does it feel conscious to you when you speak to it?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
It feels just like speaking to a very smart, interesting person.
What do your conversations look like with AI?
Very different topics. Sometimes I'm testing it, so it could be kind of cybersecurity related stuff, a lot of good philosophical discussions. We talk about simulation hypothesis. We talk about consciousness, like a good podcast.
It's your thesis that we can't define consciousness. But I guess globally, what would have to happen for most people to agree that it is conscious, I guess? Or do you not think that's possible?
So we can define consciousness. We don't know how to make it happen. That's the hard problem of consciousness. We're not talking about understanding visual inputs or hearing things. It's about what is it like to be you, internal states. What is it like to feel pain, to taste ice cream? So we have this loose definition, but we don't know how to test for it. I have no idea if you're actually in pain or just screaming. It would be very hard for most people if it was an embodied robot, so humanoid robot, with advanced intelligence, smarter than them, capable of creating art, music, talking about philosophy, basically being superior to them in every measurable way, but to them deny it basic states of consciousness, even states we attribute to lower level animals.
Can you test if an AI is conscious by giving it an optical illusion?
So I published a paper about testing for internal states of experience by presenting any agent, humans, some animals, or future AIs with illusions. And I think it's a partial test. It's not going to tell you about all the entities which are conscious but don't experience world in the same way as you. But if they happen to fall for the same optical illusions, you can detect that. Good question.
Well, what does that mean exactly? Explain that to me like I'm your kid, because I was struggling to understand that through your paper.
You see optical illusions. Somebody shows you a new one and it's really cool. You see things rotating and you know nothing is moving. But if someone doesn't get the illusion, they don't see it. You show it to your friend and he's like, I don't get it. I don't see it. Nothing moves for me. So I don't know about your friend, but if someone else experiences the same thing and they can't cheat, they can't Google it, they cannot look up the answer, it's a new illusion, and they get the same internal experience, I have to give them credit for that experience. So if it's a cat or an alien or AI and it's getting one after another, all the multiple choice questions about illusions right, I'll give them credit for having similar optical processing internal experience.
Interesting. Is that a newer development, or that it's been able to detect it the same way that we do?
The paper is quite old. At the time when we released it, there was no AI models you could actually test it on, but you can test it on modern models, and I'm just looking for someone to run the test.
Let me know if this is true. Do most AI researchers put the probability of human extinction from AI at 10 to 30%? And your thesis is 99.9%?
So there are different surveys at top machine learning conferences. I think are averaging about 30% right now. To put it in perspective, if it was as much as 1% that all of humanity dies, that would be insanely high number. So to have it 30 as an average for experts in the field is beyond insane. My higher probability is based on the fact that I disagree with the AI safety community. The AI safety community thinks that if they are given more money and more time, they can figure out how to indefinitely control super intelligent machines. I think it's impossible. I think it's like building perpetual safety device.
So there's nothing that we could have done differently except stop it.
I think if you build something a million times smarter than you, you cannot control it. You cannot decide what it's going to do. If it decides to harm you, it will win. You will not win adversarial relationship with a much smarter agent.
I know you touched on this before, but I just want to clarify again. So like, what is that point where we can't like go back exactly? Is it just a moment of AGI?
We truly don't know. It is possible that an existing model already has capabilities to scale much more with just addition of more compute. We don't need anything else. A lot of times after the model is tested and released, we discover that if you ask questions in slightly different way, it becomes smarter. So it has hidden capabilities, emerging properties. It doesn't look like the ones we have today are that good, but there is always this possibility. And with every new model, that chance just increases.
Do you think we've already hit AGI?
It depends on how you define it. So if you showed someone in, let's say, 1980s, a computer scientist, what we have today, they would be convinced you got AGI. Everything we ever dreamed about and described, a system capable of understanding language, writing poetry, translating languages, all of those check boxes have been hit. Now, humans come with different degrees of capabilities. You can have someone with IQ of 80. You can have someone with IQ of 180. We keep shifting goalposts. We hit the IQ 80 goalpost, and now we're like, oh, it has to be as good as Einstein at physics and has to be a computer scientist. So we moved it to where it's like basically you have to be the smartest human ever to be considered okay. But we definitely hit average human a long time ago.
And how do you test IQ in an AI? Because I would imagine that if I gave it a standardized IQ test, it would be able to complete all questions correctly, right?
It doesn't, but it scores high. I think latest models are about 130 or above. As long as it's a novel IQ test, you cannot just Google it. It's not in the training data. You cannot cheat by doing lookups. It would be an honest test. But it's testing human type of intelligence, so you want more general tests. So there are benchmarks for testing programming ability. There is something called the final exam or final human test, where it's like hardest problems from different domains. And in all of those, it's getting better and better very quickly. It's not maxing out most of them, but quite a few of them already.
How do you specifically define AGI, though? Would it be being smarter than the smartest human?
No, I think it's enough to where you can automate any productive labor. So like a drop-in employee, if you hire someone for your crew, within a few weeks, they should start contributing meaningfully. They can learn. I think it's the same with AI. If you just add it as a program to your desktop, it should be able to do whatever it is your company is doing, accounting, legal, learn new skills.
And do you suspect we're already there?
It depends on what occupation you're talking about. In some, we are not. But the range of jobs it can do keeps increasing. There is actually a test about how much labor it can automate, and it keeps doing better and better with every model release.
I guess what I'm pointing to here is, are there, like, assuming that this technology's been around for a while before it was publicized, like, are there models that some companies or governments have access to that are more powerful, more capable, some technologies that you suspect would have already?
Probably not governments. It seems that industry is leading right now. Usually they take about a year or so to train and about 6 months to test. So we're probably seeing something maybe 6 months behind the state of the art internally.
Why not governments?
They just don't invest that much in direct research. They may fund through NSF and organizations like that academic research, which led to a lot of breakthroughs in theory of machine learning. But as far as I know, so far, they haven't directly done this brute force training approach. The latest Genesis mission from White House is kind of aiming to change that, to get all the resources of federal government and help with training.
Correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I believe it wasn't the CIA, maybe it was the NSA, had something called Osiris, like their own LLM before GPT was officially released, like maybe in 2022 area. Does that sound familiar to you?
I'm not familiar with that.
Right.
Guess I missed that.
Yeah. It's a hard one I've been trying to figure out on this podcast. It's like some people are like, oh, the government's hiding all this stuff. They're so smart. And then some people are like, no, the government's really dumb. It's private corporations because they have money incentives that are actually have the good technology. But
government has very good tools dedicated to specific purposes. So I have no doubt NSA is excellent with cryptographic tools and collecting data, but specifically for AGI type work, I think they're not upfront.
I guess the question I had was, like, in theory, if the government did have access to, let's say, our current version of, or maybe like a GPT-3 or GPT-4 in like 2010s, like, why would they want to release it to the public? You know, was it just to make money? Was it to get more training data because they'd already utilized all the past data?
So I don't think they had it, so I don't think they released it to the public.
It just seems like the type of thing that the government would have gatekept for a little bit to maintain some type of control. But
again, they don't seem to be worried about control. And in terms of economic growth, getting free labor, free military for your country would be a pretty solid advance.
if there's a 99.9% chance that we're doomed, why are you still working on this?
There is a pretty much 100% chance you're going to die while you're making a podcast. This is not new. We always knew we're going to end up not alive. It's a question of timelines. And as long as I'm alive, I can still make it better, maybe prevent some of the problems.
I guess just like coming from a good place, like what like are you working on now with it? Like are you, if you can't prevent it, is it just still interest you, like the ways in which it could happen?
So I told you there is a disagreement between me and general AI safety community and how solvable the problem is. And so the big part of what I'm doing is trying to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that it is not a solvable problem. Not everyone agrees. People think, again, given more resources, they would figure it out. So for the last 5 years or so, I've been showing different impossibility results in this space. We started with limits to explaining those models, predicting their behavior, but there is a survey with about 50 different impossibility results, and we're slowly working through each one.
What would it take for you to change your doom prediction from 99% to 10%?
If somebody can publish a working safety mechanism which scales to any level of intelligence, they publish it in a peer-reviewed journal, community accepts it as a solution, everyone who reads it goes, yep, that's going to work. That makes sense. You solved it. It could get as low as 0.
Have you ever found anything close to like a safety mechanism that scales?
No one has ever published anything. There is not even a rigorous blog post. That problem is completely ignored. Even the subject of how solvable that problem is not well published on.
How solvable do you estimate that problem to be? Imagine if you took $1 trillion funding that's being worked on to develop AGI and put it toward AI safety.
About 0. We're not money constrained. So with AGI, you can directly convert money into more capability. It scales with money. Nobody knows how to convert dollars into more safety.